Well, today on the program, we'll be taking a look at some issues that have come up in the banking industry, especially as regards to customers. Now, recently, the Central Bank of Nigeria signed a deal to have the biometric data of customers, captured by the Central Bank of Nigeria and the banks. But how much of this is a welcome development to the sector? I'm being joined on the program now by the head of shared services from the Central Bank of Nigeria, Chidi Umeano. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, and thank you very much.
And I also have here with me in the studios financial analyst Wale Uluwo. Thank you so much, Wale, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Harriet.
Well, let me start with you, Chidi. Let's understand what is the main objective of this biometric data capture in the context of this Know Your Customers that we know that the banks are doing. Already the banks seem to have information, on the customers. So why is the Central Bank of Nigeria doing this again?
Okay, let me just say that the whole idea is to have data that every bank can access. In other words, you have data that is cuts across the entire industry. And the whole idea of biometrics is that it's, first of all, biometrics actually refers to identifying individuals, customers of banks, with their own physical attributes, with their own physiological characteristics, fingerprints, facial geometry, retina, all those kind of stuff. That's what biometrics is all about. And what it does give is uniqueness, an identity that cannot be forgotten, an identity that cannot be stolen, an identity that cannot be forged. So clearly, what we're trying to do is to increase the security of what we presently do today in KYC.
Okay, but you know that there are some other organizations that actually do this, the capturing of the biometrics that we're talking about now. The Federal Road Safety is doing it. We have telecoms companies who've done it. We have National ID Card Project as a NIMSI, and of course the police is also doing it. So why does the central bank need to do this? Why can't they get the data from any of these organizations to compute what they want to do?
Let me first of all say that the industry is different. The industry is doing its own stuff. What we're trying to do is to capture the data, the biometric data of customers of banks in the country. I think during the signing ceremony, I think you guys were represented there as well. The governor was very clear on that what we're doing is actually complementary to what NIMSI is doing. In other words, ours is a subset of what NIMSI is doing. At some point, there will be handshake. At some point, there will be integration. At some point, we're going to have interface. Discussions at that level has actually begun. It's something that we know that at some point, there will be some complementarity. But now we have to start something because we need to move on with what we want to achieve in the industry.
Well, let's look at the financial implications to all of this. NIMSI is doing the same thing that the Central Bank of Nigeria is doing, and they're proposing about $50 million for this project. Does it make any sense?
Let's not look at the cost first. Let's look at the problems that we have had in Nigeria with respect to data gathering and data usage. It's been disjointed. And what we have today is a situation where the banking system on its own is supposed ordinarily to rely on the biometric data, put together by the government agencies, either the passport office or the FRSC, that's the driver's license, and now it's being extended to the voter's card. But even when you have done all that, there's still a gap, and the gap is that those who are not very literate still avoid the banking sector because of these KYC and biometric challenges. Having said that, I think what matters at this time is that the sectors that are critical cannot continue to wait on the Nigerian system to protect itself and its customers and the operators and stakeholders in that sector. And I fully support the CBN's initiative in this regard. I don't think the cost is enormous relative to the number of people this thing is supposed to serve. That is on one hand. On the other hand, I would have preferred the CBN, collaborating with other regulatory agencies so that we can make this exercise a part of the overall financial strategy for Nigeria. Honestly speaking, CBN is doing its own, is very proactive, the right thing to do, but we still have another group in the financial sector, which is the pension fund administrators. They have to do their own. Luckily for us, they are still new, probably about 10, 14 years old. But the greatest data challenge in the Nigerian financial system can be located within the capital market. That's a sector where I've operated for a long time. The problem in the capital market is that we have a lot of unclaimed dividends. We have a lot of share certificates that cannot be dematerialized, either because of those days where people signed so many forms of public offer and they can't remember the signatures they had put in these things. And it's not only that. In the share certificate, in the dividends, we have billions of naira in unclaimed dividends today. Okay, so I would have preferred the situation if the CBN had, collaborated with others. If they're doing it first with the intention of extending it to the other sectors of the financial market, it's fine by me. But if we had done it together, it would have been a great thing. Okay, but so CBN should be commended for this.
No, I think.
So Chidi, yes, let's get your reaction.
Yeah,
on that.
He's not. So let's say I don't quite agree with his assertion here, because we are actually working with PENCOM. Okay. I know that for sure, and I know that by the time we are done with gathering this information and data, that is actually going to be for the entire financial industry. Okay. That's part of the plan. In fact, at the during the process of getting this to a close, I think we had a series of discussions and conversations with PENCOM. They were part of the whole deal. So it's something that we're very clear about. We know what we want to achieve. Okay.
Now, you remember that we have the credit bureaus as well. How do they fit into all of this? Because they have the responsibility of collecting data for the banks on customers who actually take loans and all of this. So will they still be needed in the system when eventually the biometrics data project actually kicks off?
Yeah. In fact, one of the key reasons actually for going biometric is actually because of the credit bureaus, because there's an interface and they're going to supply data using the unique ID of every single bank customer. And the information we expect that will be across the entire industry will be information about the credit rating of the individual. It will be about the exposure in the entire industry. These are the kind of stuff, the kind of things we expect to get from credit bureaus, and we're already working with them. I mean, of course, they're licensed by CBN anyway, so it's something that we're very clear about. We know and they expect that it will jump our economy big time, because what will happen now is that by the time you begin to identify people for who they are, you feel more relaxed, you feel better protected to advance credits to people, and we know the impact that will have on the national economy.
And we know that the banks actually suffer credit fraud, because of so many leaks that we seem to have. How much of that is going to be plugged when all this comes on stream?
No. Okay, I hope you know the kind of information the credit bureau will send to the central database. They're going to tell us about the credit history. They're going to tell us about defaults. They're going to tell us about the entire exposure of the individual. And at the click of the button at some point, when the unique ID of somebody is known, you get all the information about that particular person. So decision-making, credit evaluation becomes a lot easier to handle. So that's the kind of things we expect to get from this.
Well, we know that it's supposed to be a single identification database for all Nigerians. What about the unbanked? How is this supposed to encourage them?
Why? I think the first question to ask yourself: why are people unbanked? There are a lot of issues with the KYC requirements. If you go today to some banks, even though they've been three-tiered KYC, but in the days you needed to bring NEPA tickets, you need to bring metal invoice and stuff like that, and this really put people off. And then imagine the illiterates, imagine the expense of going to do those stuff. But what we're saying now is that if you just come and capture maybe a thumbprint that nobody else can share with you, it makes it easier for an illiterate actually to open an account and actually be responsible for it.
Well, you seem to have forgotten that most of them, especially the market women, they use Baba Ijebu, who comes and collects their monies and goes to the bank and does the transactions with them, so they don't even need to go to the bank at all. How do you go to convince such a person who is the pepper seller, the rice seller, those people in the market who are the ones who are moving the little cash that we seem to be seeing, you know, everywhere. And how are you going to go and convince them that, look, you need to come to the bank and let's do this process for you to make it easier for you to keep your money, and nobody will take advantage of you or steal your money and the rest of it?
Yeah, first of all, I think that one of the ways we're going to approach this as an industry is that we're going to make sure the sensitization effort is enhanced. People must understand what it's all about. And right now, bits and pieces of it are going on. The central bank is right now engaged in a financial literacy campaign all over the country. That will also be part of what they're going to be telling people. But at the end of the day, by the time it kicks in properly, the banks, the CBN, and everybody will now be engaged in discussing and telling people what it's all about. Because the woman that collects money, the woman that collects money and gives an individual to go and put in an account for them, they can as well do that. Because while they're doing that, they're building up their records. They're building up history. They
which also makes it easy for them to go and collect credit from the banks.
Yes, and that's really what we're talking about. And that's when we talk about financial inclusion, we're not just interested in going to put money there. We're interested in the things around it. Insurance, being able to get some credit, being able to make savings, all that kind of these are the kind of things we expect. And that's why part of it is why we're doing this as well.
Okay.